You have no idea what's coming next." Those words echoed in Sarah's mind as she stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. She was just a waitress, working another shift at the Bayou Spoon, a dimly lit restaurant tucked in the corner of New Orleans' busy streets. The soft hum of conversation, the clinking of silverware, the faint sound of jazz in the background. It was all part of her routine. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was going to do something she'd never imagined, something that would change everything. Sarah had always known that every dollar counted, that each tip could make a difference in her life. She had been raised in a small, cramped apartment with her mother and younger brother, both of whom relied on her more than they knew. As a kid, she learned to make the best of things, to smile when the world tried to knock her down, to serve with grace despite the unfair treatment that often came her way. But tonight was a new challenge, one that was completely unexpected. The man sitting at the corner booth, the one with the expensive suit and the sharp, confident look in his eyes, wasn't just another customer. No, he was Jason Harris, the CEO of a major tech company, someone whose name appeared in the headlines and whose power could move mountains. And right now, he was in trouble. He had come into the restaurant just like any other high-profile guest, his entourage following closely behind. The moment he sat down, he seemed like he was in charge, as usual. But as the evening went on, something shifted. A problem arose that Sarah couldn't ignore. Jason's face went pale as he searched his pockets, his expression turning to frustration. He tapped his fingers on the table, his usual confidence slipping away. Sarah had been walking by when she overheard him mutter under his breath, "I'm done for." The words stung her ears. She knew something was wrong, and she couldn't just stand by. "Wallet," he muttered, clearly embarrassed. "I can't afford to pay for this meal, and I don't want to make a scene." Sarah's eyes softened as she watched him struggle, his face a mixture of disbelief and frustration. For a moment, she stood there, unsure of what to do. She didn't have much money herself. She had just enough to make rent, to buy her brother's school supplies, to keep food on the table. Her last $10 were sitting in her purse, a lifeline she had planned to use for herself. But then she looked at Jason again. The weight of his words, the defeat in his eyes, it hit her harder than she expected. She wasn't about to let him drown in his own pride. Without thinking, she stepped forward and placed a hand on the edge of the table. "I'll take care of it," she said, her voice steady. Jason's eyes widened in disbelief. "You what?" He looked at her as if she had just told him the world was flat. But Sarah simply nodded, pulling out the $10 from her purse. She had just enough to cover the meal, and she was going to do it. "You can pay me back when you're able," she said, her tone calm but firm. Jason didn't know what to say. For a moment, he just stared at her, his pride battling with the reality of the situation. But then, to her surprise, he smiled. Would shake her life in ways she never expected. She brushed it off, telling herself it was just another day in the grind. Sarah worked 2 jobs, taking care of her little brother and helping her mom with the bills. But today, something was about to change. She pulled herself out of bed, running a hand through her hair as she moved to the kitchen. The coffee maker was already brewing, the smell of fresh coffee filling the small apartment. She had just finished making breakfast when the phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unfamiliar number. Curiosity piqued, she answered. "Hello. Hi, is this Sarah Mitchell?" The voice on the other end was calm but authoritative, with a hint of urgency. "This is Sarah," she replied, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Who's this?" "My name is David West. I'm a representative from Harris Technologies. Polished marble floors and high-end furniture." She approached the front desk, where a woman with platinum blonde hair smiled warmly. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see David West," Sarah replied. "I have an appointment." The receptionist nodded and gestured toward the elevators. "He's expecting you. Go right up." The elevator ride was brief, but Sarah's nerves were palpable. What could this be about? She wasn't sure, but the thought of Jason's earlier words lingered in her mind. "I didn't expect this, but I appreciate it." The elevator dinged as it reached the top floor, and Sarah stepped out into a spacious office, her heels clicking on the polished floors. David West, a tall man in his early 40s, was waiting for her. His suit was sharp, and his smile was genuine. "Sarah, it's good to meet you. Thank you for coming." He led her into a glass-walled conference room that overlooked the city, the view breathtaking. "Please have a seat." Sarah sat down, trying to remain composed. So, what's this about? She asked. David took a seat across from her, folding his hands on the table. First, I want to thank you for what you did for Mr. Harris last night. You helped him in a way that no one else would have. Sarah blinked, unsure of how to respond. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, she said. I just helped. It was more than that, David said, his voice steady. You saw him in a moment of vulnerability, and you helped him without hesitation. That's rare, and that kind of kindness doesn't go unnoticed. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. Was he really talking about her? Mr. Harris wants to meet you, David continued. He's deeply moved by your actions and wants to make things right. Sarah's heart raced. Was Jason really that affected by what happened? She hadn't expected anything from him, not even a thank you. But now, here she was, sitting in a fancy conference room, being told that the CEO of a major tech company wanted to meet her. David stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. I'll take you to him, he said. Sarah stood up, feeling a mix of excitement and uncertainty. What was going on? Little did she know, this meeting would be the start of a completely new chapter in her life, one that she never saw coming. Sarah followed David down the sleek hallway, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the quiet. Her heart raced with each step. She had never imagined this moment. One minute, she was just a waitress in a New Orleans restaurant, helping a man she didn't know. The next, she was walking through the pristine, glass-walled offices of Harris Technologies. The view from the conference room she passed was nothing short of breathtaking. She couldn't help but glance out, noticing the tall skyscrapers and the bustling city below. It felt like a dream. David led her to a door at the end of the hall. Mr. Harris is waiting for you, he said, knocking lightly before opening the door. Inside, Jason Harris stood by the window, his back to her. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his posture strong and commanding. As Sarah entered, he turned, his expression softening when he saw her. Sarah, he said, his voice warm. Thank you for coming. Sarah stood in the doorway for a moment, still trying to process the surreal turn of events. Jason Harris, one of the most powerful CEOs in the tech industry, was standing before her, smiling. I wasn't expecting this, Sarah said, her voice uncertain. Jason nodded. I understand. Please, have a seat. He motioned to a chair across from his desk. Sarah sat down, her hands resting in her lap. There was a moment of silence as Jason studied her. It was a strange, almost uncomfortable silence, but not in a bad way. It was as if Jason was trying to understand her. Last night, you did something extraordinary, Jason began, his tone thoughtful. You helped me when I didn't deserve it. I wasn't prepared for that. Not from someone like you. Sarah blinked, surprised by his words. She had never seen him in such a vulnerable light. I just did what anyone would do, she said quietly. I didn't expect anything in return. Jason smiled faintly. That's the thing. You didn't expect anything, but I've learned that people like you, people who show kindness without thinking of themselves, are rare. And I don't think I've ever really appreciated that. Not until now. He paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. I've spent my life chasing success, pushing for the next big deal, the next big win. But in all that time, I've lost sight of what really matters. What I saw in you last night was something real, something that can't be bought. Jason took a step closer, his gaze steady. I want to make things right, Sarah. I want to help you the way you helped me. Sarah blinked, still trying to wrap her mind around what was happening. What do you mean? I've been thinking a lot about what happened, Jason said, his voice more serious now. And I realize I have the means to do something for you. I want to offer you something that could change your life. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. I don't know what to say. Jason sat down behind his desk, leaning forward slightly. I've seen how hard you work, Sarah. I know that you're doing everything you can to take care of your family. And I admire that. So I want to offer you an opportunity. Not just a handout, but a chance for something more. Sarah shook her head, still processing his words. But I don't need anything from you, really. I just wanted to help. I know, Jason replied softly. But sometimes, helping others means giving them a chance to do something they couldn't do on their own. He paused, looking at her with a new kind of understanding in his eyes. I want to offer you a job, Sarah, at Harris Technologies. We've been expanding, and I think you'd be an incredible asset to the team. Sarah's eyes widened. A job? But I'm not qualified for that kind of work. I'm just a waitress. You're more than that, Jason said, his voice firm. You have something that most people don't, compassion, integrity, and the ability to see what others can't. Those qualities are worth more than any degree or title. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. I don't know what to say. Jason smiled, his expression softening. You don't have to say anything right now. I just wanted you to know that your actions have made an impact, and I want to help you change your life. I'll leave the decision up to you, but just know that the offer is there. Sarah sat in stunned silence, her mind racing. She had come to this office expecting nothing more than a thank you, maybe a polite gesture. But now, here she was, being offered a chance at a completely new life. She had never imagined this, never thought that one small act of kindness could lead her here. Jason stood up, walking around the desk to stand beside her. Take your time, he said gently. But just know that I'm here to help, if you want it. Sarah nodded, her heart still racing. She had no idea what the future held, but in that moment, she knew one thing for sure. Her life had just changed forever. Sarah sat in the plush office, her fingers trembling slightly as she processed everything Jason had just offered her. The words job opportunity echoed in her mind, but she couldn't quite grasp their full meaning. Harris Technologies, the company that had revolutionized the tech industry, that had its name in the headlines every week, wanted her. A woman who had never stepped foot in a boardroom, a woman who had spent most of her life in the quiet chaos of waiting tables. I don't know what to say, Sarah finally whispered, her voice barely audible. Jason smiled gently, his presence calm and steady. You don't have to say anything right now. Just think about it. He reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out a sleek, black folder, sliding it across the table to her. Inside this folder is all the information you'll need. Take it with you, look it over, and let me know when you're ready. Sarah hesitated for a moment before picking up the folder, her fingers grazing the cool leather. I never thought this could happen, she murmured. Jason's smile widened, though his eyes remained serious. It happens when people like you do things that others are too afraid to do. You showed courage and kindness, Sarah. That's something that doesn't go unnoticed, even in the corporate world. He stood up, walking around the desk to stand beside her. I believe in giving people a chance to change their lives, he said quietly. I want to give you that chance. Sarah looked down at the folder in her hands. Her mind raced as she thought about the life she had left behind in the restaurant, long shifts, late nights, the constant balancing act between bills and responsibilities. And then she thought about her younger brother, the one she had promised to send to college, the one she worked so hard for. The opportunity Jason had given her was everything she had dreamed of. It was more than just a job. It was a lifeline, a way to escape the cycle of struggle she had lived in for so long. But could she really leave it all behind? Could she step into this new world, a world she had never imagined would be hers? I'll think about it, Sarah finally said, her voice filled with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. Jason nodded, as if he had expected her response. Take your time, he said kindly. But remember, sometimes the hardest part is taking that first step. You've already proven that you have what it takes. Sarah stood up slowly, still clutching the folder in her hands. Thank you, Jason, for everything. You don't have to thank me, he said with a chuckle. You earned this. Just remember, this is your chance. Make it count. As Sarah made her way to the door, she paused for a moment, taking one last look at the office. The view outside was mesmerizing. The city stretched out before her, the skyline dotted with towering buildings, the promise of something bigger than herself. She stepped out of the office, the door closing softly behind her, and felt the weight of the world shift ever so slightly. This was it. This was the moment her life changed. She walked to the elevator, her thoughts swirling. It wasn't just the job offer that had shaken her. It was the realization that she had been seen, truly seen, for the first time. She had spent her entire life blending into the background, her existence defined by what others thought of her. But now, Jason Harris had seen her. Not as a waitress, not as a woman struggling to make ends meet, but as someone with value, someone with potential. Sarah stepped into the elevator, her hand resting on the cool metal. As the doors closed and the elevator began its descent, she looked down at the folder in her hands once more. A job at Harris Technologies. She couldn't believe it. But one thing was clear, she had just taken the first step towards a future she had once thought was impossible. Sarah stood outside the tall glass building, the folder still clutched tightly in her hands. She had walked out of that office with her heart racing and her mind spinning. It had all felt surreal, as if she had stepped into a world that wasn't meant for someone like her. But here she was, staring up at the gleaming structure that represented everything she had ever dreamed of. A life of opportunity. A chance to escape the grind she had known for so long. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her out of her thoughts. She took it out and saw a text from her mother. "Hey, how did the meeting go? Call me when you can. Love you." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had always worked so hard for her family, trying to make things better for her younger brother and her mother. And now, for the first time in a long time, she felt like something might actually change. She typed a quick reply, her fingers trembling slightly. "I'll call you in a bit. It went well. Love you too." She slipped the phone back into her pocket and took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. The decision wasn't going to be easy. She had always prided herself on working hard, on earning everything she had. But now, an opportunity was being handed to her on a silver platter. A job at Harris Technologies. A chance to leave her job as a waitress behind and step into a world where she could make a real difference. She looked down at the folder in her hand. Inside, there was all the information she needed. The job description, the benefits, the salary, everything she could have ever hoped for. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to open it. She knew what was inside, but something held her back. The fear of the unknown. The fear of stepping into a world she wasn't sure she belonged in. But she had to make a choice. She couldn't stay in the same place forever. Her family needed her, and she needed to prove to herself that she was capable of more than just serving food. She wanted to show her younger brother that anything was possible, that dreams could come true if you were willing to work for them. With a deep breath, Sarah made her way back to her car. The city streets buzzed with activity around her, but she felt like she was in a bubble, her thoughts consuming her. She couldn't stop thinking about Jason's words. "You're more than just a waitress. You have something that most people don't: compassion, integrity, and the ability to see what others can't." She had never thought of herself that way. To her, she was just a woman trying to get by, doing whatever it took to survive. But maybe, just maybe, Jason saw something in her that she hadn't seen in herself. Sarah drove back to her apartment, the familiar streets offering little comfort. As she pulled into the parking lot, she couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. She parked and walked up to her apartment, her mind racing with possibilities. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: her life was about to change. When she opened the door to her apartment, her little brother, Jordan, was sitting at the kitchen table, working on his homework. He looked up when he saw her. "Hey sis, how did it go?" he asked, his voice hopeful. Sarah smiled and sat down beside him, feeling a lump form in her throat. "It went well, Jay. I got an offer." Jordan's eyes widened. "You mean you're getting the job?" Sarah nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "Yeah, I think so. I just have to make sure it's the right decision." Jordan smiled and hugged her tightly. "You deserve it, sis. I've always believed in you." Sarah squeezed him back, feeling a surge of emotion. This was why she had worked so hard. This was why she had pushed through the long shifts, the exhaustion, and the doubt. For moments like this, when she could see her brother smile and know that she was doing something good for him, for their family. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the future. She had the opportunity to change her life, to build something better for herself and her family. The decision was hers to make, but she knew that no matter what, she was ready for whatever came next. She had always believed that the hardest part of life was taking the first step, and now she had taken it. The rest of her journey was up to her. The next morning, Sarah woke up earlier than usual. The sunlight had just started to spill through the curtains, casting soft shadows across her room. She sat up, her heart still heavy with the decision she had to make. She hadn't slept much the night before, her mind running through every possible scenario. Was this really the right choice? Could she leave behind everything she had ever known for a new life she wasn't sure she was ready for? But then, as she glanced at her little brother still asleep in the next room, the decision felt clearer. For him, for her family, she had to take this chance. She stood up, taking a deep breath, and walked to the kitchen. Her mother was already there, sipping her coffee. Sarah smiled at her, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning, Mom," she said, trying to sound casual. Her mother looked up, sensing the shift in Sarah's energy. "Morning, honey. You okay?" Sarah nodded, though the knot in her stomach grew tighter. "Yeah, just thinking a lot." "About the job?" her mom asked, raising an eyebrow. Sarah stopped in her tracks, surprised at how perceptive her mother was. "Yeah," Sarah said quietly. "I'm just not sure what to do." Her mom set her coffee cup down and patted the seat next to her. "Sit with me for a minute," she said softly. Sarah sat down, folding her hands in her lap. "You've worked so hard, Sarah. You've always put everyone else first. And I know you've wanted more, but you're scared. I get it. I'm proud of you no matter what you decide. But remember, this is your shot. You don't have to stay in the same place forever. We'll be okay." Sarah felt the weight of her mother's words. She had always been the one who took care of everything, the one who held the family together. But now, it was time for her to think about herself. Her mom was right. This was her chance, a chance to change everything. She had always put others first, but now, it was time to put herself in the picture. "I don't want to mess it up, Mom. What if I'm not enough? What if I can't keep up?" Her mom smiled gently, squeezing her hand. "You've always been enough. Don't let fear hold you back. You're capable of more than you know." Sarah looked down at her hands, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had always believed in the importance of hard work and doing the right thing, but maybe now, for the first time, it was okay to think about what was best for her. She stood up, a sense of determination settling over her. "You're right. I can do this." Her mother smiled, a proud tear in her eye. "I know you can. We're here for you always." As Sarah left the apartment and got into her car, she felt a sense of calm that had eluded her the night before. She had made up her mind. Today, she was going to take that step forward. She drove to Harris Technologies, her hands steady on the wheel. The decision wasn't easy, but it felt like the right one. She parked in the lot outside the building, the tall glass structure looming above her. She stared at it for a moment, the weight of the moment sinking in. This was real. This was happening. She walked through the doors, her heels clicking on the polished floors. David West was waiting for her in the lobby. He stood up as she approached, his expression warm. "Sarah, good to see you," he said with a smile. "Are you ready to talk?" Sarah nodded, a mixture of nerves and excitement swirling inside her. "I am," she said, her voice steady. David led her to a small conference room, where a large screen displayed the company's mission statement. "We're glad to have you here," he said, sitting down. "Jason spoke highly of you. He believes in you, Sarah. And so do we." She felt a flutter of nerves, but they were quickly replaced with a sense of pride. She had made it this far, and she wasn't going to turn back now. David went over the details of the job, the salary, the benefits. But it wasn't just the numbers that mattered. It was the opportunity to build something new, something that she could be proud of, something that could change the trajectory of her life. As they finished the meeting, David stood and extended his hand. "We're excited to have you on board, Sarah. Welcome to the team." Sarah shook his hand, her heart full. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for, the moment her life was about to change. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally on the path to something more. She left the building, stepping back into the bright sunlight, the city bustling around her. It wasn't going to be easy, but Sarah knew one thing for sure. She was ready. Ready to step into the future she had worked so hard for. Ready to take control of her own destiny. The first week at Harris Technologies felt like a whirlwind. Sarah found herself immersed in a world of high-stakes meetings, cutting-edge technology, and a level of professionalism she had never experienced. Every day brought new challenges, new faces, and a learning curve so steep it made her head spin. But through it all, there was a part of her that couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. No matter how much she wanted to fit in, no matter how hard she tried, the world she had entered felt so far removed from the one she had come from. She spent her days in conference rooms, collaborating with teams on projects, and soaking up everything she could. But every night, when she returned home to her small apartment, she felt the weight of imposter syndrome creeping in. What was she doing here? What if everyone found out she didn't belong? One evening, after another long day of meetings and presentations, Sarah found herself staring out the window of her apartment. The city lights below twinkled like stars, and for a moment, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for how far she had come. She had dreamed of a life like this, of opportunities, of success, of making a real impact. But now that she was here, she realized how much work it would take to truly belong. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her train of thought. It was a text from her mother. "How was your day, honey? Miss you." Sarah smiled and quickly typed back. "It was good. A lot to learn, but I'm hanging in there. I miss you too." She sat back on the couch, reflecting on everything that had happened in the past few months. It felt like a lifetime ago that she was working long shifts at the Bayou Spoon, her world revolving around customers, tips, and the never-ending cycle of survival. Now, here she was, part of a team at one of the most prestigious tech companies in the world. But even with all the success, there was still a part of her that wondered if she was enough. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Jason Harris himself. "Sarah, I hope everything is going well. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. You're doing great work, and we're happy to have you on the team." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she read his words. It wasn't the first time he had reached out, but each message felt like a reminder that she wasn't just some hired hand. Jason saw her. He recognized her value. And somehow, that made all the difference. She quickly typed a reply. "Thank you so much, Jason. I'm learning a lot, and I'm grateful for the opportunity." She hit send and sat back, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. For the first time in a while, she didn't feel like an imposter. She felt like she belonged. The next morning, Sarah was back at the office, ready to tackle whatever came her way. As she walked through the lobby, she was greeted by a few familiar faces, her coworkers who were always kind, always supportive. They had started to include her in more conversations, more team lunches, and it felt like she was finally becoming part of the family. She had learned more in the past week than she had in the last few months of her previous life, and the knowledge she was gaining was shaping her into someone she could be proud of. But there was still something lingering in the back of her mind, a nagging feeling that she couldn't quite shake. The thought of her brother, Jordan, always brought her back to her roots. She had to do this, not just for herself, but for him, for the family that had always counted on her. After a productive morning, Jason called a meeting to discuss the next big project the company was rolling out. Sarah entered the conference room, where she was met with the usual suspects, her colleagues, the project managers, and, of course, Jason. He stood at the front of the room, ready to kick off the meeting. "Sarah," he said, spotting her as she entered. "Glad you could join us. We need your input on the next phase of the project." Her stomach fluttered with nerves. "Of course, Jason," she said, her voice steady. As the meeting began, Sarah was amazed at how much she had already learned. It wasn't just the technical side of things that intrigued her. It was the way the team worked together, the way they communicated and problem-solved as a unit. She was starting to feel like she had a place in it all. After the meeting, as everyone filed out of the conference room, Jason pulled her aside. "Great work today, Sarah," he said with a smile. "I'm impressed with how quickly you've adapted. Keep it up." Sarah felt her chest swell with pride. "Thank you, Jason. I'm doing my best. I can see that. And that's why I think you're ready for the next step." Jason's words hung in the air. Ready for the next step? Sarah's mind raced as she tried to process what he meant. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. "I want to give you more responsibility," Jason said. "You've proven yourself, and I think it's time for you to take on a leadership role. You'll be overseeing some of the smaller teams and projects. What do you think?" Sarah's heart raced. She hadn't expected this. She had only just started to find her footing, and now, she was being asked to step up even more. But as she looked at Jason, she realized that this was what she had been working for. This was her moment. "I'm in," she said, her voice full of confidence. Jason smiled. "I knew you would be. Welcome to the next phase of your journey." Sarah spent the next few weeks trying to adjust to her new role. It wasn't easy. The transition from being a waitress to a project manager at one of the biggest tech companies in the world felt like stepping into an entirely different universe. Every day, she was learning something new, whether it was about the latest software developments or how to manage a team effectively. There were moments when she felt completely out of her depth, but there was something else that kept her going, the determination to prove herself, not just to her colleagues, but to herself. She had come so far, and there was no turning back now. Her team, though supportive, still looked at her with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. They had seen her at the bottom, and now they were watching her climb higher. At first, Sarah struggled to gain their full respect. But little by little, she started earning it. She spent extra hours studying project timelines, reading through technical documents, and making sure she understood the details. She was learning to navigate the complex world of corporate dynamics, where decisions weren't made on impulse, but were carefully calculated and strategized. One afternoon, as Sarah sat in her new office, going over some reports, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mom. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. Keep going. You're going to do great things." A warm smile spread across Sarah's face as she read the text. It was moments like this that made all the struggles worth it. She was doing this not just for herself, but for her family. She remembered the promise she had made to her brother, to give him a better life, to show him that anything was possible if you worked hard enough. As she responded to her mother's message, her phone rang. It was Jason. "Sarah," he said when she picked up, "I've been hearing great things about your work. You've really stepped up, and I'm impressed. We're planning a major launch next month, and I want you to take the lead on the team." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. This was what she had been working for, her chance to truly shine. "Thank you, Jason. I won't let you down," she said, her voice filled with newfound confidence. "I know you won't," he replied. "You've got what it takes. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do with this project." As the days passed, Sarah found herself immersed in planning the upcoming launch. It was a massive undertaking, with so many moving parts. But for the first time, she felt like she was truly in control. She called meetings with her team, set up timelines, and even proposed new strategies to streamline the workflow. Each day brought a new challenge, but Sarah felt ready for it. She had built a foundation, and now it was time to build on it. One evening, after another long day, Sarah sat in her office, staring at the city lights below. It was late, and most of the office was empty. She leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath. She had come so far in such a short amount of time, but there was still so much more to do. The thought of her little brother, Jordan, kept her grounded. She had to keep pushing forward. She couldn't stop now. There was still a future to build. Just as she was about to leave for the night, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Jason. "Sarah, we need to talk tomorrow morning. I've got some big news." Sarah's mind raced. Big news? What could that possibly mean? She quickly typed a reply. "Of course, Jason. I'll be there." The next morning, Sarah walked into the office early, her mind full of questions. As she entered the conference room, she found Jason waiting for her. He smiled when he saw her. "Good morning, Sarah. Have a seat." Sarah sat down, her hands clasped together. Jason's expression was serious but warm. "I've been thinking a lot about your work and your progress here," he began. "And I've come to a decision. We want to offer you a promotion." Sarah's eyes widened. "A promotion?" she repeated, stunned. "Yes," Jason said. "You've shown exceptional leadership and dedication. We're moving forward with some new initiatives, and I believe you're the perfect person to lead them." Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. A promotion? After everything she had been through, this was the validation she had been waiting for. "Thank you, Jason. I won't let you down," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I know you won't," he replied with a smile. "You've earned this." As Sarah walked out of the conference room, she felt a wave of pride wash over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she was being recognized for her efforts. It wasn't just about the promotion, it was about everything she had overcome to get to this point. She had stepped into a world that once seemed out of reach, and now she was a part of it. As Sarah left the office that evening, she couldn't help but think about how far she had come. She had taken risks, faced doubts, and pushed herself beyond what she thought was possible. And now, she was on the verge of something even bigger. The journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Sarah walked through the office doors with a new sense of purpose. The promotion Jason had offered her was more than just a step up. It was a recognition of everything she had fought for. It was validation that all her hard work, her sacrifices, her leap of faith had been worth it. But it wasn't just about the title. It was about the opportunities that came with it, the potential to lead and make a real impact. Over the next few weeks, Sarah dived headfirst into her new role. She led meetings with confidence, crafted strategies, and took charge of her team with an energy she never knew she had. The other employees started to look at her differently. The respect she had longed for began to build, brick by brick. But there were moments when doubt crept in. It was hard to shake the feeling that she was still the girl from the Bayou Spoon, the waitress who had no right to be here. There were days when she felt like an imposter, when the weight of her new responsibilities felt too heavy. But with every success, every small win, those feelings began to fade. One afternoon, as she was reviewing a presentation, Jason called her into his office. She walked in, a little nervous, but ready for whatever he had to say. "Sarah, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the work you've done," Jason said, his voice warm. "The team is thriving under your leadership. You've done an excellent job." Sarah felt a rush of pride at his words, but she tried not to let it show. "Thank you, Jason. I'm just doing my best." Jason smiled. "Your best is exactly what we need. You've shown that you're ready for even more. I want to give you a bigger project, something that could really take your career to the next level. We're launching a new initiative next quarter, and I'd like you to lead it." Sarah's heart raced. This was it. This was the chance she had been waiting for. The chance to show that she could handle the big leagues, that she could lead a major project and make it a success. "I'd be honored," she said, her voice steady. "I'll give it my all." "I know you will," Jason said, standing up and extending his hand. "You're proving yourself every day, Sarah. Keep it up." As she left his office, a sense of excitement and fear filled her all at once. She had been given a golden opportunity, but it would take everything she had to make it work. But she wasn't afraid. She had come this far, and she knew that she was capable of so much more than she had ever thought possible. The next few weeks were a blur of long hours, meetings, and tight deadlines. Sarah worked tirelessly, coordinating with her team, keeping everything on track, and ensuring that every detail was perfect. She was learning more than she ever had, and the challenges she faced only fueled her drive to succeed. As the launch date approached, Sarah found herself reflecting on how much had changed since she first walked into Harris Technologies. She had gone from a waitress with no formal training, no connections, and no clear direction, to a leader in a prestigious tech company. She had worked harder than she ever had before, but she had earned every success, every achievement. The day of the launch finally arrived, and Sarah stood at the front of the room, leading the presentation. Her team was there, confident and ready. Jason was in the back, watching, a proud smile on his face. As Sarah spoke, explaining the strategy and vision for the initiative, she felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. This was her moment. She had done it. The presentation was a huge success, and the initiative was approved to move forward. Sarah's heart swelled with pride as her team congratulated her. Jason walked up to her afterward, a look of admiration in his eyes. "Great job, Sarah. You've really proven yourself." "Thank you, Jason," Sarah said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without my team. We all worked together." "You led them well," Jason said. "This is just the beginning for you, Sarah. I can't wait to see where you go from here." Sarah looked around the room at her team, at the people who had once doubted her, who now looked to her for guidance. She realized that, for the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. She wasn't just the waitress who had made it into the tech world. She was a leader, and she had earned her place. As she left the office that night, the weight of everything she had accomplished settled in. She had faced every obstacle, every doubt, and had come out on top. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt proud of who she had become. She was no longer just surviving. She was thriving. And this was only the beginning.